So over to you, Lucy.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for making the call. I'd like to introduce Becca Davis from Guildford. Becca gave a lot of very useful feedback to me when I was trying to collate an onboarding guide for AHATs. Becca was born in Jersey and still travels there regularly. So she has a lot of very practical experience of Asian hornets, and I thought it'd be useful if she shared that experience with all of you tonight. So over to you, Becca.
Okay. Yeah, so that's me. There you go. My very brief CV. I was born in Jersey. I left as a student in '88. I'm a beekeeper. I was an accountant, but I've given up on that, and I'm an avid quilter. So varied pursuits. I became the hornet lead in Guildford a year or so ago when Jonathan stood down. I first went back to Jersey to hunt hornets in 2022, which was after an elongated lockdown because my husband was ill and we didn't think it was worth the risk flying. Historically, I've always asked a lot of questions, whys and buts, and poked things, and hornets haven't been any different for me. I found them utterly fascinating by the first time I saw them. So I've collected an awful lot of photos. One of the things I'd like you to take from this presentation is that you can take much better photos if they're not in traps. The other person which threads through this is Bob Hogg. He hosted me the first time I went out to Jersey and has become a very close friend. The picture on the left is probably the second night I was in Jersey. The way things worked was that supper got cleared from the table, a white sheet was put over it, and then a nest would come out and we'd take it apart. So whys and buts helped an awful lot. And there he is on the right, down at his apiary, and he has a pint of milk, a packet of chocolate biscuits, and a badminton racket. This sums up Bob for me. So the first thing I said, some of this stuff at the beginning before we get onto my holiday pictures is just to bring forward some things to familiarise yourself so that you look at the photos, looking at the right stuff. The first is identification. I've stolen all these photos off somebody, various people. Angus is a very nice one with a 2p there, and our native hornet. Now, there's three things that I want you to look at on that. One is this band is common to the two. They both have this high waist, very narrow band. Are you seeing my pointer? No. Okay. Narrow band in the middle. Up to the head, we have an Alice band on a hornet. The Asian hornet is very black. The European hornet that lives in England is yellow. On a lot of the documents and stuff that we hand out to the public, we've actually got a European hornet, which has quite an orangey, a much darker headband, but our English ones have this very nice yellow one. And that's a feature which stays on a dead insect for quite a long time after the rest of the insect goes brown. And then we have the bums. It doesn't show up well here, but the European hornet has a very much UK wasp colour yellow in it, whereas the Asian hornet has a much oranger colour. So these are some of the photos which somebody put on Facebook a year or so back to say this is the quality of the stuff that we're getting through to ID hornets from. Have a go. So both of these two, the only prominent feature we can see there is their bum. That one is being tagged, it's on the left is on a wicking bait, so that's a bit of a giveaway. But the one on the right, even though it's an appalling photo, you've still got that very characteristic backside. The second two of the set of four, we have very clearly on the right-hand side, I think everybody here could identify that as an Asian hornet. But then we look at this one on the left. Remember I said about that Alice band? It's there. So that is a European hornet. Even though it's a dead insect, it's appalling, its legs could be any colour you like, it's a European hornet. So we do need people to start improving their photography skills, improving their willingness to get close to these insects. This was a phone call I took, which was another ID. I'm told that taking photos and sending them to the app is the only way to do it, and don't talk nonsense, you can't talk to people. This lady phoned me. To say she was panicking is to put it mildly. I was driving around the M25 on my camper van at the time, going up to Cambridge, and I had a deadline, so I couldn't stop. I couldn't come off the phone. She said she'd got some photos a friend of her had taken, but she didn't have any storage capacity on her phone, so she wasn't able to do it. But she had this insect in a bottle. So I said, okay, let's talk about the insect you have in a bottle. She eventually was able to explain to me that she thought it was probably no longer than the first digit of her finger, which to me instantly said, this is not a hornet that we're looking at. It's not big enough. And then we started talking about face markings, and she said, it's got a couple of lines and they're white. At which point we said, it clearly is not a hornet of any variety, so let it go. And the following day, she actually sent these photos to the NBU as well, and they forwarded them to me and back to her and said, no, we don't think that's a hornet. But she could have just taken a photo, and this is one of the things that frustrates me. At least it wasn't a dead insect. A lot of the insects that come in are dead. So that's partly why I've done this presentation. I've got a lot of pictures showing you that you can take photos of these insects. They're not that scary. So here we have some hornet bums. That comes back to identification. Hornet bums in Jersey and hornet bums in Surrey. They take wonderful photos. They sit, this on the right hand side sits between my garage and my shed door. It's actually sitting on part of a nuke. If they don't have enough juice in there, they will shred your J-cloths. So what you can see there is on the surface on the right hand side is bits of J-cloth that are being picked off. And on the on the left hand side, I'm not very good with lefts and rights, you've got a wasp there and a bunch of yellow-legged hornets. You can see there how orange their bums are. And that is, it's a very different, the wasp is a much yellower shaped colour than the hornets. The second thing I wanted to talk about in the admin sense is life cycle, when we are likely to see hornets. And this relates back to what sort of monitoring and when is worth doing. This is the NBU picture. The Sarah Bunker graphic is actually much better if you have her book, I would say, than this one. But anyway, so what we've got here is a hibernating queen over winter. It comes out of hibernation in March or April. At that point, they are hungry. They've just been asleep, hibernating for 3 or 4 months. The first thing they want to do is feed. So a trap that's very near a late nest may well pick up a queen coming out of hibernation. Once they've fed, and I don't know how long that phase takes, how long they're awake and feeding for before they hibernate, before they migrate, they then travel. We have no idea what direction, we have no idea what distance. It could be a couple of 100 metres. I think France, the maximum they registered because somebody caught a lift was 70 kilometres. So the idea of trapping for your spring queens once they start moving about the countryside, to me, is rather troublesome. If you don't get them in that very, very first few weeks, you're probably not going to find them until later. What happens then, after the queen has migrated and found a new location, is she builds a primary nest. She builds the first layer of cells, lays eggs in them, and this is then her responsibility to feed those eggs. So she will be out of her nest in probably a quite small circumference, looking for food, which will take the form of insects, to feed her larvae. 45-day gestation will start to have workers coming out. I also don't know how many she would lay and try and maintain in that early stage, but I'm guessing it's not that many. The workers will then take over, catching insects and feeding them back to larvae. What the larvae do is processes the carbons in the larvae, in the insects they're being fed, and feeds it back out to the workers as a sweet solution. So in those early days, you've got a dynamic where the only thing that's going into the nests is likely to be insects. And that'll be in the springtime when flowers aren't out, etc. Early spring. At some point, that balance tips where there's more workers than the larvae can feed, and then they will start foraging. Then you might see them on spring flowers, you might get them coming to bait, but their numbers don't really build up until about mid-July. So come mid-July, they start being much more obvious in their local area, and that's why we start monitoring mid-July. Now this is a little snippet I got from John de Carteret in Jersey, timing of nests in Jersey in 2022, which feeds into that. Their first primary was found April the 14th that year. Their first secondary wasn't found until June 29th. The first half of July, they mostly found primaries. There was 10 of them. And by the second half of July, 34 nests, mostly secondaries. So you can see that fits in with the life cycle. There's no point putting out monitoring stations in early June because there simply aren't, unless you're a couple of 100 metres from a nest, you're not going to see them. Then they had 47 secondaries in August, 26 secondaries in September, 30 in October. Obviously that's a couple of years ago. I think the statistics from last year are going to be very, very different, but I suspect that timing suits our needs at the moment. And then we get to my holiday photos. So I get asked a lot of questions of, well, what's in that tub? What's in that tub? Why is it white? So I thought I'd just put a list of all the things that you might see in there. The liquids, the fondant, the nectar equivalents, we've got sugared water running off fondant, which is usually white or clear. We've got trapit, which is pink, as we all know. And we've got Bob's bait, which is fermented sweet stuff using small amounts of whatever sweet stuff, jams and stuff that he has in his kitchen. If he's feeling impatient, he might put a bit of baker's yeast, but he actually quite likes doing it in autumn and leaving it to percolate over Christmas and pick up airborne yeasts. And that one's usually brown and mucky. Then we have absorbent stuff, and again, it really doesn't matter what you use. So there are tissues, there are kitchen rolls, there's washing up things that I would call J-cloths, there's cotton wool, and there's sponges. Anything goes. Trays and jars, again, absolutely anything goes. If it contains a fluid and you can weigh it down. I personally, when I'm over there, like things with lids, because I have a bit of a revulsion to everything that you touch being sticky. Bob has a lower threshold for that. This is what I could see on one occasion in the back of Bob's truck. There's a whole variety of different things. There's a whole variety of baits, but what you will notice is there's no traps there. So we've got, coming from the left, we've got cotton wool. Then we've got a jar with pink stuff in it. We've got a little tiny one next to it which doesn't have anything in it but could be put in something like the Vita Farm pot. We have what looks to me, every time I look at this, like a ginger biscuit, but it's actually a piece of granite holding down a cloth. More wicking. A Vita Farm, you'll notice it doesn't have its lid on it. A drinks bottle. A bottle full of, well, it would have been, it's got a little pointy thing in its cap. This is spare bait, but it looks a bit empty to me. And then the last one at the back there, which has an upturned drinks cap stuck to the top of it, if you're seeing what I have. The one at the back on the right hand side. That is used when we're actually trying to pay attention to a hornet. You can leave a wicked bait out for a couple of hours and they will drink very, very slowly from it. If you're there and you're impatient to see what direction they go, you want them to drink and leave a little bit quicker. So you squirt a bit into a cap and they will literally take 30 seconds to a minute to fill up rather than 10 or 15. And this is the clip on the side of the back of his truck. And you can see how very nasty the brown stuff gets. It's so there's 3 brown stuff and 2 pink stuff there. It's a bit of an anything goes. It's not a high cost activity in Jersey, certainly for Bob. I've got a couple of videos and things next. How do they react around people? the Daily Mail and the Sun would have us believe that these are vicious creatures, that they're going to ruin your barbecue, they're going to steal your drinks. These are my feet. People keep asking me if I wear protective gear, and the answer is no. This is Bob's back garden. It's just out. It's actually between. I'm stood between the door of his conservatory and his garden shed where his freezer is. So we bypass these tray every morning and sit and watch them. If I can find. There we go. There's usually fondant on the top of this bucket, which is probably what they're scurrying around looking for. As you can see, they're paying me no attention at all. Notably, there is a European horse in that pot as well, and nobody is bothering each other. I love their little wiggly bottoms. I'm sure there's a technical name for that, and bees do the same, but and then we have that was this summer. This was a very, very windy day. So windy that I ended up pulling some bindweed out of the hedgerow and tying this to the pole that you can see just coming up on the left-hand side, the white one. But one of the reasons I've stuck this in is variation. The hornet lower left has a much yellower backside than the other two, and this was a variant that I was seeing quite a lot in Jersey this year. And this is obviously a hornet that I have marked with a Posca pen. These haven't been caught. It was too windy. It was just too windy to do anything. I did end up giving up. And what the video next is, I was giving up. I decided I need to be somewhere sheltered. So what you do is knock the pole, all the hornets go flying, you pick it up and you walk away. That's how it's supposed to work. As I walked down the road, I became aware that I had some passengers. So I started videoing the pair and thinking they'll be gone. But no, they were so intent on feeding that they came with me. That's the end of that. How do they react around hornets? So you get the reaction you're going to see next, not only around hornets, but also around each other. Sometimes you can get 6 or 7 hornets on a bait station and everybody plays nicely. Sometimes they're just complete bullies and assholes. This was one of those moments. It's not like there's a lack of bait or space there. They are, of course, all trying to fill their guts with nectar and then go back to their nests. So you don't necessarily get winners and losers in this. In the background, there are still European hornets flying around, but the Asian hornet came back in quite happily, carried on feeding. And then this one, I think that this was a much longer video, but it got truncated at some point. This is one that I think's on the BBKA resources. So it's not aggression in the same way, but there is still a slight submissiveness from the Asian hornet. It stays out of sight. I'll play that one again. It stays out of sight of the I won't play it again apparently. It tries to keep out of direct sight range of the European hornet, which is quite common for them. And then here we have a bunch that are quite happily feeding together. No antics. There you've got tissues and fondant. Now, a really curious thing, and I've noticed this a couple of times, is orientation. It's almost like they are short-sighted, that if you disturb them, they'll wander around a bit like our bees orientating themselves to come back. And I've noticed this on times when we move a bait station by a couple of meters, they'll take a few minutes to find it again. So they're not doing it by smell, they're doing it by a combination of things. This is Julie, my counterpart from Farnham, came over to Jersey with me in 2025 for a couple of days. It was cold and windy. As you can see, she is fully dressed there. We put the bait tray on the floor in a field about 10 metres from the edge, and the hornet was flying towards me, but I kept losing it. So she said, I'll go back against the hedge, which is behind her, 10 paces or so, and see if we can track it down the edge of the field. So she did that. We still lost it, but when the hornet came back, it didn't go to the tray in the middle of the field, it went back to Julie. So what it had learned was that this tall dressed figure was where the food is. So Julie stood at the beginning, at the edge of the field, the hornet went to her instead of to the bait. So she stood there and she was going, what am I supposed to do? I have a hornet, I've got a friend. So she decided to walk it back across the field, and this hornet just kept smooshing around her legs, got her across to the bait station, and she was back on the bait. So if you're in the middle of a field with hornets, consider that. This was a video I took for Ian Campbell. He's the one that's encouraged me frequently when I go over to Jersey to take specific videos or things of behaviours. And we were asked to go up to an apiary with about 20 hives that had a lot of hawking happening at it. And unfortunately, the beekeeper had got his name and phone number across the front of all the hives. So I had a fantastic video, which unfortunately we couldn't use. This one is not so bad, but not quite as good as the first one I did. So you can see the bees bearding just a little bit, and it's more obvious in the next video I've got as well. But we have a hornet doing the very, very classical, but apparently it's tired, outward facing hawking. It was absolutely fascinating watching them. They would do this very, very slow motion. There are bees going backwards and forwards, so it doesn't go for every single one, but it'll eventually catch one and it'll disappear, and within 2 or 3 seconds another one has replaced it. So you're not aware of a lot of hornets around you, but they are there ready to take over. And from that point of view, at this point in time, this was right at the end of August, they are quite relentless. This was a little nuke. Oops. And again, it's taken up a position in front of the entrance. It does keep turning around, which surprised me, to check where it is. And the bees are trying very hard to be defensive. I think our European hornet probably would have picked one off the door there if he just got in. So yes, you can sit and watch them doing this all day. They do not give up. Bob. Bob thought he'd throw some netting around one of his hives rather than putting a muzzle on, and it had been done 2 weeks before this video was taken. So normally you would expect to see the hornets at about the edge of the landing board from the previous 2 videos. 2 weeks it's taken to reposition itself. So it's a bit more confused about where it should be, certainly. It does at some point go inside it and back out again. But And it is this behaviour that means that beekeepers in an area where you're not looking for them are likely to notice them first, because this is a fairly constant presence once they've found your beehives and they're hungry. And then we had this. It caught a bee and went, well, that was nice of you to put a little structure up there that I can hang off and dissect this bee. It is now inside the netting and still completely unconcerned. It can't fly through the holes, but it can fly to the netting, get through it, and then fly back out again. So I'd say these hives weren't under a massive amount of stress. There was one that was being robbed completely, but most of them just have one or two hornets visiting this particular site. Bee dissection. Right, sticky feet. It's something that Alistair said to me the first time I was there. He was talking to a bunch of prospective trackers. He said, be careful with your trays of sticky stuff, because if your hornets get sticky feet, they will go and clean themselves off in the nearest high object, which is usually a tree. So trying to work out what distance and timing they do when they've taken 30, 40 seconds in a tree in the wrong direction is a little unhelpful. But this is a hornet demonstrating each of her legs as it touches the fluid that she doesn't want to be there. She's trying to find something to stand on. And then she moves across. This is one of the many hornets in these presentations that led us almost directly to her nest. And actually that one didn't complain about sticky feet because she was flying straight across her open area. And then we have some gratuitous hornets. That's got a letter missing. Unexpected bycatch. The last couple of summers, I have taken part in the big wasp survey. I don't know how many else of you have participated in that. It's something run by Sussex Uni, I think, where they ask you to put a beer trap, a kill trap out for a specific week. I think it might be 2 weeks, a week anyway, in August, and see what you catch. The first year I did it, I had about 25 wasps of various kinds, and I sent them in. The second year they decided that they didn't want to have to identify the thousands of dead, decaying creatures that they'd been sent, and they sent us some very good slides showing us all the different features of the different wasps and asked us to identify themselves. And I had about 45 that year. This year, I got 13 European hornets, which actually made me sad. There's one moth, a few flies, and one small wasp. So I know that I wasn't seeing very many wasps last year, but that demonstrated it somewhat. And that was a kill trap in the form of this on the left-hand side. So just fluid, an upturned lid of a bottle, and something to keep the rain off at the top. Very simple, fairly effective. And then on the right is showing an equivalent not trap, because it doesn't have clear liquid that's open to the hornets in the bottom of it. It's got a small white lidded thing with a wick, and it doesn't have a lid on at the top, which means that the hornets will keep coming back. I think that's, for me, the key feature between traps, even if they're not kill traps, and open bait. You can take some really good photos because the hornets keep coming back to you. They will keep coming back at 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever their flight time is to their nest. And they will do it from the moment the sun comes up to the moment the sun goes down. Where you have kill traps in the area, the insects avoid you. They produce complete dead zones. And I've had this 2 or 3 times. There's one area Bob won't put bait up because he says there's no point. No hornets will come to it on this particular farm because the farmer puts kill traps up. The other consideration I would have on traps, non-kill traps, which I know a lot of you like to use, is the idea of emptying it even twice a day. If you've got a hornet that's hungry and it gets into your trap and it feeds and it then can't get out, it's got up to 12 hours, maybe even 4 hours, I don't know how long, of pure frustration and probably terror of trying to get out and not being able to. I don't know, because I don't have those kind of traps, but do you catch this? Can you mark a European hornet and does it come back and get trapped every day? Or does it learn to avoid you? Because on my patio, I've got hornets visiting every day. I get different viewpoints off my patio. This is one of them. We had been on holiday, so the bait, that's closest to us in the curry jar had dehydrated a bit across the wick, and obviously the sugars had been left behind. So my bees very helpfully came and mugged it in the ways that only bees do. They had it for about 2 hours, and then we were all back to normal and hornets were visiting. So you don't always get it completely right. If you get too many bees visiting your trap or your bait, then you know that the balance is perhaps wrong. I ended up working with beer with some sugar dissolved in it. It took a week or so for the hornets to find it interesting, but after that they were perfectly happy with it. How are we doing on time? I'm good, aren't I? We're past.
Yes.
Right, one of the nests, well, two of the nests. This was the smallest nest that I've seen. I actually helped Bob retrieve this one. It's just about bigger than my cup of tea, and that was the entire contents of it. It didn't have a queen in it. It had fallen off the brambles onto the forest floor. It had some various wriggly things that shouldn't be in a hornet's nest in it, but very small. There's 37, I think, hornets there. And then in contrast, we've got this one, which Alistair was up a cherry picker with Bob. I'm sure the two of them have very strong memories of having taken this one down out of a home oak. The top is to the right-hand side. The bulgy bit underneath my wrist is actually the top. So they sit like chandeliers, for those of you that haven't seen nests before. And the larvae hang downwards. They're only one-sided and they hang downwards. This shows you a couple of the what to call them, frames, layers of the nest. You can see the white is the larvae rings being used. They do have numbers on, but I can't read them. And the second one from the left is the top side of one of those layers. And you've got the little white threads, which is the same as the cocoon fabric. It's like a silk that is used to strengthen the supports that attach each of the layers going up together. And then over here is the queen. That is the queen out of that particular colony. You can see a glint off the middle there. You can spot an existing queen when you take a nest apart because she is shiny. And I really, really do mean shiny. They have loved her up so much during the season that they rub off all of her body hair, which I just find fascinating. This is a hornet that's on a little grooved piece of wood that then goes under the microscope to check the distance between the two wings, which is how you can confirm that it's a queen. Obviously we know this one's a queen because she's shiny. None of the other hornets are shiny. And this was counting them. That's Bob at the end, and on the left-hand side of that first picture are the hands of Sarah Bunker. This was the nest which features in her upgrade of the book. This would have been 2023, I think. So we had to count them. Normally you get quite a few hornets inside the nest. This one was quite a drama up this cherry picker. We were locked in a car watching them, but it was not a happy experience. Of the 3,300 approximately hornets that came out of this nest, something like 2,900 of them were in the Hoover. That's 2,900 hornets had come out of this nest as they were trying to take it out of the tree to attack them. And then we put them in piles of 10. We sexed them first, so there's males in one pile and females in the other, and then we counted them all. And that is the end of my presentation. I don't know how to end myself.
Oh, I can do that. Let me. There we go. I've stopped you sharing.
Okay.
Thank you, Becca. That was excellent.
Different perspective, let's say. Different holidays we all take.
So do we have any questions from anyone? If you'd like to ask a question, put your hand up. Don't put it in the chat. Oh, there we go. Roger, if you unmute.
Yeah, hi. First of all, thank you very much indeed for that really clear presentation. I'm getting swamped in Asian hornets because I went, as I expect a number of you did, on Saturday to the conference. But the question I have is, and it might sound facetious, but it's not meant to be. You mentioned that if you have kill traps out, the hornets will then avoid that area, and so. What is the prospect for us deliberately putting kill traps in the apiary? Would that prevent them from coming?
So I think my feeling is, and again, analogy, anthropomorphism, where you try and put your feelings onto it.
Sorry, excuse me interrupting, but some people have got their microphones on, so we're getting echo as
I
we
am
speak.
muting them. I can't work out who it was. So I'm just muting people who weren't speaking.
Okay, I'll try again. Unlike bees that go back home and tell all their friends to come out to the nest, to the site of food, hornets don't do that. So if you are somewhere where only one hornet has found you and it dies, it's not going to come back. If you are in an apiary where a lot of hornets have found you, and as I say, when we were sitting watching the hawking going on, there was one hornet just coming in after the next, after the next, after the next. I'll volunteer to catch the next bee. There was just a queue of them somewhere, and they were at most of the hives. There was 20 odd hives on this field, and they were hawking all of them. So a kill trap isn't going to do much, because I think we were about 200 meters from the nest, and there was just an awful lot of them. So no, I would say that a kill trap on an apiary isn't going to do a whole lot of good.
Thank you. It's just a thought.
Yeah, I know. These things are all worthy of thoughts. Somebody had the bright idea that European hornets would be our solution, which is why I include those videos. They're not. They play, but they're not your solution.
Thanks, Roger. Peter, if you want to unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, I was just, earlier writing down questions about how has anybody used AI? I know the Buzzcopper, but like the MBU, used AI to verify whether they're Asian hornets or whatever to identify photographs.
I'm probably not the best person to answer that, but I do know that over in Jersey, Bob's had, I mean, not just Bob, but there have been one or two programs trying to take videos of, in the same way that Buzzcopper has, to try and identify them. They don't seem to have come to market.
Well, I mean, the Asian hornet has been around for quite some time, and I know the government have been getting money to do all this. I'm just surprised that the powers to be, haven't come up with some sort of way of identifying them, and yet Buzzcopper have got it for their little unit, because they're saying that they're so swamped with photographs trying to identify them, it takes so long to do it, and I'm just surprised, sort of 3-4 years later down the line, that no one's come up with it.
Lucy?
I'm happy for
Yes,
somebody else to step
in answer to that, Peter, just to say that Buzzcopper has simplified its task by giving the Hornet a very defined platform to land on and a very defined camera angle, and it's on a white background, so it's quite an easy ID problem. You know, if it's on any background anywhere, it's probably a little bit more difficult. I mean, this being said, you know, I'm sure there are some, you know, commercial solutions out there. Whether the NBU uses them or not, I don't know, but that'd be a question for your B inspector, I guess.
I was just wondering, you know, is it a question that should be asked to these people? Are they coming up with something to make things easier, or are they just, you know, spending the money just going around checking
We
you know,
will ask
the hornets?
the non-native species secretariat contacts we have, because they're the ones who do the triage. We'll ask them what they're using, see if they can tell us. So we
To
will
be
ask.
fair, once you start seeing Asian hornets, you're seeing Asian hornets. You don't need an AI to tell you that you are.
Well, yes, I know, but in Lincolnshire, we've not got anything yet. We've had a scare. That's about it. But I'm getting people asking, because I've been doing quite a few talks, I'm getting people asking, well, why is it when we send a photograph in, it takes so long? And I'm saying, well, they've not got AI. No, this is something that I don't know whether they've been missing a trick, but I thought that would have been one of the first things they got onto. I know we're sending out leaflets and cards and everything else, but it just
You're
seems
talking
to
about
be
the See It, Snap It app.
that's that sort of thing. Yeah.
Mm.
But
Mm.
so I'm just wondering what's going on, really.
We will ask questions. But thanks for that. Kate, if you unmute and ask your question, please.
Thank you very much. At the Southwest Conference in Bridgewater on Saturday, the lady from Dover District was asking, was mentioning that the count of nests was not very optimistic, and that the primary and secondary nests were counted as two different nests rather than a queen, two queens.
Yeah.
Do you know how Jersey count their nests?
Separately. On a daily or weekly report, it says how many primaries and how many secondaries. I
So that could
think
be half the
Alistair
amount of
can
queens.
probably answer this, but I think they do a total number of queens. So that could be a queen that's just caught, or a nest, etc.
All right.
I
Okay.
think
Thank
that's
you very
John
much.
there. Does John want to give an answer to that? If you unmute, John.
Yeah, we record everything. We originally started recording off nests differently, but of course we have embryo nests, primary nests, and secondary nests. But one of the things we do dissection for is to try and identify the queen. So we'll also on our map that we produce every week, you can see that if the queen is not there, we do it in a slightly different. We do it in a different color, so we can. With embryo nests, we would expect the queen to always be there because she's the only one. But elsewhere, she may be missing for whatever reason. But we identify that. But we don't include those queens in the queen numbers. So, for instance, this year we had 1,376 queen records and then 702 nest records. I've got a breakdown in the talk I'm preparing, but that 702 is embryo, primary, and secondary. And we have a fourth category called tertiary nests, but I won't go into that now. I don't know if that answers the question. Thanks.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
Jill next, please, if you unmute.
Yeah, we're in Staffordshire and obviously a long way from where the front line is. I'm wondering how, I mean, I didn't get to the Bridgewater conference, but how has sort of the southern counties and Jersey, has the public been the most important thing in getting everything noticed? And how have perhaps the southern counties where it's creeping in for when we get to this problem, what has been their best defense in keeping the public informed? What have they done to make sure people are knowing, snapping, apping, etc.? It could cost any of our associations a lot of money to get little bits and ends together, or films and things. So we just want to know what the best advice is to what we can advise our local people.
Is there anyone from Dover or the south east, southwest who could give an answer to
I think
that?
Michelle Elliott is on the call if she.
I can see Lawrence waving from Thanet. If you want to unmute Lawrence and chip in.
Yeah, hi there. Yeah, we border Dover district, and Dover, where Jackie Thomas is doing a fantastic job. They've had it really bad. So far in Thanet, we've been fairly fortunate. We had a total of, we found a total of 3 nests last year. Not saying that we got them all, but we are a smaller area than Dover and district, and terrain is different. The public are very, very important, and we found them to be really, really supportive. We just make a big thing that if we do any fairs or any presentations, or we talk to kids at school, to schools, or any groups like that, we will talk about beekeeping, but we always raise Asian hornets, and we have like samples in acrylic to pass around so people can see what they look like. And obviously we give out all the cards and everything, because without the public, there's no way we as beekeepers are going to be able to try and manage this in any decent way. So we really need to keep them on side. And it was quite refreshing last year. The awareness down here seems to be pretty good. But, we've still got to carry it on.
One of my other arms is that I'm involved with scouting, and when I first originally went, the Asian hornet, yellow-legged hornet, raised its ugly head, I sort of thought, why aren't we as beekeepers or a beekeepers association getting scouting, guiding people that camp out in rural places, do hikes, get them involved in education throughout the whole of the scouting system, guiding system, because these are the people that are on the ground looking at things. I tried to do it on a small local level, but to get it higher up a tier, I was wondering if there's anything that could be done with our combined forces to sort of pile information into all these youth groups.
Thanks, Jill. That's a really useful comment. We'll discuss that as part of the Asian Hornet
Can I
comms.
come in on that?
Yes.
Jill, what we did, we were involved with the Scouts locally, and what we actually did, they ran a big buzz badge for the Scouts, and as part of that, Asian Hornet was a huge part of them being able to recognise it. And what they were doing was all of them were actually monitoring for Asian Hornets at each Scout group headquarters. And that was across the whole of Kent. And we did the jamboree that was at the Kent County Show. So there is a precedent for it. And I can put you in contact with the guy that actually dealt with that in our area.
Thank you.
On the point of actually getting people involved, I agree with Lawrence. We've been very fortunate in the South with all the work that we've been putting in, and we've found WhatsApp groups, parish councils. If you have a problem in an area, if you can get it onto the local road or local village WhatsApp group, then the public will actually get involved much quicker.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm going to launch a couple of quiz questions very shortly. I'm just writing them now about communication. But in the meantime, we'll go to Robert Day, if you unmute. Robert's got long hair.
Sorry, yeah, shared computers, the perils of. I just going to ask what the national guidance is going to be around monitoring earlier on for all of us along the South Coast. So I'm down in Fareham. And is there going to be a policy that they're asking us all to do that, or are we just waiting for those sites that have been around nests from last year?
We're expecting a map showing areas which will show the hotspots, and we will get that in the next couple of weeks, and we will share that with people. And we hope people will do a level of monitoring in the hotspots, and perhaps even in the not hotspots, because you might be the new hotspot. I don't know how many of you are aware of the very late nest that was found in Wrexham. So when the lady in South Staff said, "Oh, it's a million," it's all the way away from us. I think on a map, Wrexham's a lot closer than Kent. So it should be of a concern to us all. But yeah, we'll let you know when we know.
Okay,
and
thank you.
they have guidance on that. Okay, so Andy's next. Hi, Andy.
Let me unmute and lower my hand. Yes, just some points to Jill of South Stat. One of them was not on the front line, and that comes to what you last said. We've got them up in Preston here, and we like making that point up in the north part of Lancashire and then into Cumbria, because nobody's not on the front line. It's just that maybe you don't know it. And this is the problem I think we've got. There's a potential, and I say that very carefully, a potential masked problem with everyone thinking it's over there, but in fact, it may well be next door to you. Wrexham was a lovely example of that. We had it in North Cheshire and Runcorn. And just when they're thinking, oh, well, maybe that was a one-off, they appeared north of Liverpool as well, and now in Preston. And we had a sighting in Preston spring for last. From one of the distribution centres for vegetables. This is how it's going to appear, like it did in Portugal. It appeared in North Portugal from distribution centres and then spread through the rest of Portugal. It wasn't, if you like, a progressive along the north of Spain. So it's amazing how it can pick up. Back to the education part of it, just to let you know, especially in the larger rural areas like Cumbria, we found the county shows that there's also monthly, quite often in most towns, they have monthly farmers markets, perfect places to crop up. We have one in Kendal, which is every last Friday, and we've got a fantastic guy called Dennis who's there, obviously representing the beekeeping community, but he's got a very staunch section of it, which is all about Asian hornet. It's amazing how many people are interested. And I'd like to point out that nobody's been not interested, so to speak, especially if you pop one of these in their hand, which is, the old acetate ones. It'd be nice to have them with a European hornet, so we're going to work on that. But all my volunteers are going to have one of these. They've got a standard patter. They will go out to WI, young farmers, particularly useful. There are orchardeer groups who are really important because, of course, orchards are just the sort of places in the autumn that they're going to hang out. It's amazing how many natural history societies there are hidden around. And I've given a talk at one of those. They absolutely lapped it up. On top of that, you've got, of course, all the local wildlife organizations. They're very important to get them on board, your local one. Because they have a lot of influence with what I'm going to mention next, which is the district and county councils. If on their websites, when people are looking up pest control, I've got some hornets here, they go to the website and it immediately comes up with how to deal with Asian hornet. Then you're laughing kit bags. You've got a massive education program going. So again, it's just there isn't enough that you can do. Education and the general public, I think, are without a doubt our best enemy against them. We have a WhatsApp group. On that WhatsApp group are the lead coordinators of our surrounding counties as well. us recognizing boundaries is, as we've discovered from the French thing, is the Asian hornet's best friend. They love bureaucracy, they love boundaries, they love people not talking to one another. And they do very well out of that. Anyway, those are the points. Just on upscaling, trying to get to the source of, like the in charge of all the wildlife organizations, you actually end up diluting the message. And it'll come down maybe even second or third hand by the time it gets to the individual organizations. So it's really useful if you know someone around you who's in the local wildlife organization, the local woodland group or whatever, then they're by far one-on-one, face-to-face, leaves an impact. Whereas if you upscale, like go to the head of forestry commission or the head of this, it will be diluted big time. So just my thoughts, just to share those things. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Andy. If we go to Phil Rogers next, if you unmute.
Yeah, sorry, my point is we're in Warwickshire, so again, up until recently, thought we were well away from the front line. With the Wrexham thing, obviously that's changed quite significantly. We're in the process and have been sort of starting to gear up in terms of organising monitors and verifiers, etc., etc. At the moment, we're not too sure whether we want to go down the ER2 route or this catch. So I don't know if people down south who are on the front line can shed any light on or give us some pointers as to which they believe is the best way of spreading the word. Is it ER2 or is it catch? Or obviously we're setting up WhatsApp groups, so that's one thing. But the actual reporting. So if anybody can give us some opinions on that.
If you're reporting a sighting, use the Asian Hornet Watch app. That's by CEH, the official Asian Hornet Watch. If you want to include lots of the public monitoring, then the Catch app is probably the way to go. And if you're majoritively sticking with beekeepers because it's quite manual adding people, then the ER2 side is the way to go. I am just going to take this opportunity to do some screen sharing of the member hub. One of the questions I asked was, are you all aware there's areas in the hub for yellow-legged Asian hornet people? And if you log in, you get to this page with 9 bricks on it. You want this one that says yellow-legged Asian hornet. And there's some sections in there. There's stuff about tracking and monitoring. There's team information, awareness resources, and info for Yellow-legged Asian Hornet Week. And you might be the best place to explore all of those and find out some of the useful things on there for doing the things you want to do. There is information from previous forums on there, and I'm having a guess that it's in the team info one, and there it is. So there's the ones like Jackie, who's been mentioned before. She did a presentation in November for us. We've got notes and recording and things, and we've got an onboarding guide that is currently still a draft for comment. And if you email outreach.officer there, you will get to Teresa, who introduced herself earlier. And that's how we hope new Asian Hornet coordinators will be welcomed into the fold. But I think we need to raise awareness so that when we add a new one in our associations, and we know the communications work to get you all here tonight, but there may be other people who aren't getting communication, and we need as BBKA to do some work on that, because there's no point us having this if it's only there if you know it's there. So we'll take on board tonight that we need to work on getting hold of you all. But that was just to show you there's information there. I hope my summary of ER2 versus catch was helpful. There is within one of these sections, and I'm sure I'll find it when I'm just browsing, a detailed info about each of them, so you can read through the sort of user guide aspect of it and make a decision for yourself.
Yeah, yeah. The sort of feedback that we got really was that catch is the way to go. Um, Less work for the coordinator in terms of having to input a lot of information. Yeah, so but thanks very much for that. Yeah, we'll have a good look at that and see if we can come to some decision. It's myself and Bernard Brown looking at that.
Yeah. Right, excellent. But if you need any help, Teresa in the office can help find you bits on there. If you're struggling to find things, we're not signposting things right. We want to get you all able to find the things you need. So if you are struggling, do ask for help.
Okay.
If we go to Peter again, if you want to unmute.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, with the current state of what's going on with the government clawing money back and everything, is there any sort of body that would replace the current searching for Asian hornets, the funding and that sort of stuff? Because if they claw this back, then we're set back to square one, and we're going to have Asian hornets everywhere, and nobody apart from the government being allowed to control them.
At the moment, MBU aren't backing out of the track and trace and destruction, although I believe they've put a tender out for pest control companies to get involved in the removal of nests, which says to me that they are looking at having more help because there may be more nests, which at the same time says they're not backing out of that yet.
Right. Well, I'll find out that about pest controllers because I'm going to the conference in March in London, being a pest controller myself, and I've not heard anything about that.
It's on the government's official tender list if you looked for it there, and I don't know how many people regularly look at that. So
I've no idea. I wouldn't even know where to find it.
No, I did share it with someone from the British Pest, whatever it is, Association,
BPCA.
Yeah, I shared it with Niall there, so he's aware of it.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's their pest control show in London in March. I'll be going to both days, and I will talk to Niall myself, and we'll go from there.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
We do have a representative going there as well.
We have Lucy, don't we, going?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, maybe I'll catch up with her then.
Lovely. So
Could
Tim,
you forward me her details or something?
yes, we can do that, can't we?
Yeah.
I'm hearing that touch of feedback again. Tim, did you want to talk? You've put your hand down.
Yeah, thanks, Diane. I just dropped my hand now. It was we're from East Sussex. I got a question from one of the members. It's probably directed at you. It's from an email back in 9th of July about the trap and release licenses. So they're stopping them, but the BBKA and MBU were going to do the desk-based training in preparation for that. We just wondered if there's any update on that because we haven't seen any. We might have missed it, but
there isn't at the moment, and it's all very complicated because we have prepared the training and it was put forward that people could do the training and get licenses, but MBU couldn't work with them, so couldn't ask them to do anything. And so the decision was made, and not by BBKA, I will add there, that the training will be put off till perhaps this year when it will be offered out to people.
Oh, okay. So it's going to be, the plan is to offer it out this year, is it?
Well, there isn't a plan in writing yet. It may get offered this year, it may be next year. But when that gets offered out, that's almost signalling the end of them wanting to do it.
Right. Okay.
So we never want to be doing that training in an ideal world because there's always going to be someone from the government dealing with the problem.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. All right. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Right. There's someone who is R.W. Cobb. I'm afraid I don't know what that is. Can you unmute, please, and ask your question? There you go.
Okay. Yes, apologies. I'm Richard Williams from Meon Valley, which is located sort of
the south-ish of Guildford and north of Fareham. So we're sort of in that middle area of Hampshire. I agree with everything that Andy and Cumbria said about engaging with the public and how important it is to increase awareness. So we've certainly had quite a lot of success with agricultural shows and other things like that. I was interested to hear if anyone's got any comments about how to motivate perhaps people within their own associations to become more active and more, I don't know, get more involved, particularly with the monitoring, because one of the comments that I've heard back is that we're engaged in a phony war where we are now. And although everyone is aware of the Asian hornet and aware of the need to monitor, it's only going to be when an Asian hornet is actually seen within 150 meters of the association apiary that people are actually going to start doing anything serious about it. So if anyone's got any comments about that, I'd be very, very interested to hear.
Anyone? Oh, Andy, I think, wants to come in on that, do you?
Yeah, thank you for your kind words, Rob. Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying on that front, which is why, and to answer the earlier question that Peter was discussing with Boston, there are negotiations and discussions going on in the background, and it's important coordinators know this because we're acutely aware that it is more than, and we would like the public to know, this is more than a beekeeping problem. And so there are discussions to take this beyond simply beekeepers, where beekeepers are a stakeholder, but not the whole, if you like, body of the volunteers and the structure, especially with the thought that there may be a time in the future when the MBU and DEFRA decide to step down. So that's not a, it's not an area where people haven't been thinking about, and these things are moving on. Just to answer the AAH catch versus ER2, both of them are useful. Remember what information is needed for who. At the end of the day, both of them really are only needed for coordinators. So volunteers in themselves, although AHA catch is an excellent device because, of course, it doesn't need to be a beekeeper monitored thing. Whereas ER2, you have to be in the British Beekeepers because you've got to be vetted to be able to get into ER2, although it is still an extremely valid device for seeing what is and isn't being monitored. So I hope those two questions have been answered there.
Thanks. Roger's got his hand up, so I assume you want to add something in to answer.
Yes, please. If I may, again, in answer to your question, two quick ones. My understanding from, I've forgotten the name for the moment, the lady from Dover who gave the presentation at both the NHS and at the conference on Saturday, was that it's important not to engage people too early because you don't want to get them to be exhausted with the whole interest in the thing before they're actually needed. There was also a very, I thought, astute line from a gentleman from Flanders in Belgium on Saturday who has a similar issue, even though they are swamped in Asian hornets. And his line was that if you think you don't have, once any given area does have a problem with the Asian hornet invading hives, and his comment was, if you think you don't have time to help track and trace, you'll have plenty of time once all your colonies are destroyed, which in itself is a motivator. So I suggest those 2 points.
Thank you, Roger. Steve Tucker's next, if you want to unmute.
Hi, thanks, Diane. Just a quick one. Are our telephone numbers as coordinators still published so the public can pick them up? Because I had a few phone calls last year directly rather than coming through the app. And I just tried to see if I could, for the meeting, see if I could find my number, and I couldn't. So I didn't know if the situation had changed now.
I can share. I have just done a Google while you were talking, and this is the map on the page for the yellow-legged Asian hornet teams. And there are lots of people on here, and sorry, picking on people. What we need to do is that is publicly available, but if your phone number's wrong or you never answer the phone, then that needs something to be changed. We need
Yeah.
every association to have a coordinator on that map who can answer the phone to people. Otherwise, there's no point having the map, is there?
So is so is this bypassing the app, as it were, direct to us, so that there isn't a filter anymore? I mean, didn't have a vast amount of calls, but a lot of it would have been dealt with by the app actually triaging it before we were bothered. And if it is going to be much more prevalent and increased, it's a question of people volunteering and managing. They've got jobs and everything else to do.
You're not being asked very much at all, as far as I know,
Yeah.
to triage the we don't know what it is calls, or we haven't got a picture.
That
Because
was the situation last year.
it was the situation maybe the year before,
Mm.
that there are problems. If that is a public map and if someone rings you up and says, can I send you a picture?
Yeah,
And
that's what was happening.
One of the things we did discuss with the R2 manager actually was, if you wanted, you could put a WhatsApp link in, which is just your phone number, so the same number, but to say, just send me a picture, because then you're cutting out that 2.5 minutes of conversation. Hello, oh, I'm ringing about this funny insect thing. Oh yes, I do have a picture. If you put a link on and the info was sent out, but we can ask it's resent, then your detail when it comes up might guide people to say, I can take a WhatsApp message of a photo at any time of the day, because I can look at my phone when I'm doing things at work, when I'm on meetings and things. Or just send it by text, or, just ring me up if you don't mind people ringing you up. But if you could get people to send you the photo, you then see what they're seeing straight away. And it's like when you're on the swarm list. If people just sent you a picture, you'd be able to tell them straight away whether it's honeybees. But they all say, oh no, there's bees, they're bothering me. But that's an option for that public map. And that might make people's lives easier when they're getting more inquiries, because as Becca was saying, you can fairly well easily tell when it's a European hornet and when it's an Asian hornet. So does that help, Peter? Steve, sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, it just confirms what I thought, that it is basically bypassing the Hornet app.
We do say our message to the public is report it via the app.
Yeah.
So they've got to search for coordinator, and most people wouldn't search for the word coordinator with Asian hornet, I don't think.
No. Okay, I mean, if it's an informed thing that people are doing, but I mean, it was fine last year, but I mean, if it's gonna remain manageable, then it's not a problem. But I can see a point where we're being swamped with phone calls, and I'm not sure that I can cope with that necessarily.
No, and we might then have to have WhatsApp groups where you get a link to join it, and people have to join it to be able to say, I think I've got a hornet, and then you could have 20 people in the group, so it would be monitored in a different way. And I know some places do that for swarm collection, so you have to actually have a bit more effort to join the WhatsApp.
But we'll see how it goes. I mean, it was a bit of a shock that there was no kind of like, Steve, would you mind your number being put on the web? But I'm like, okay, whatever, it's happened, it's there. But anyway, thanks.
You are notified when you're filling in the form to have that. And if that's not happened, then I am sorry, but it is there in all the paperwork.
Okay. Here you go, Steve.
Yeah, Andy's pointing to you on the map.
Yeah. Right, thank you.
You should only be there as a coordinator. You should never be substituting for the app.
No, but I mean, it did seem that I was getting directly contacted by people saying, I've seen this insect. So I'd say, oh, can you send me a picture? And then, oh, we haven't got one. And then I was having to send a verifying team out and go through the whole process, which was
what we could do is we could have a really big banner put across there. And Teresa's still here. She can ask that it's done tomorrow in the office or the next day she's in, to say, if you've got a picture, report it via the app. Don't bother these people if you've got a picture. And that might actually cut down some of the more spurious things where people do have a picture. They just want to ring someone up.
Okay, thank
But
you.
we'll make a note of that.
I'll do that, Diane. I've made a note.
Thank you.
If we can update it on our site or whatever we need to do to make sure.
Yeah. Lovely. Thank you. Carol, do you want to unmute? No, there we go.
Hi there. Yes. Did anybody hear Chris Packham? I think it was about a year ago, saying, why are we bothering about these Asian hornets? It's basically all these businessmen, beekeepers who are interested in getting rid of these perfectly natural insects who are flying east to west like most things do in the world. And we really shouldn't be getting rid of them. It's just the greedy beekeepers that want to keep getting in the honey and making their millions. Now, ever since I heard that, I thought this guy is just missing the point, because we're on the front line, aren't we? And after that, after all our bees have gone, or maybe because our bees are there and they're being robbed, so there are more and more and more Asian hornets developing this country, they're going to go on to all the other insects, aren't they? And I think when it comes to educating the public, we should be talking to them more about the fact that we're extra vulnerable, but that makes us the watchmen for it all. You know, we're on the front line, and it's all the insects, it's all the pollinators that we're looking to help. And obviously, it's kind of got nothing to do with money or anything. It's a way of life. It's part of the British way of life, isn't it?
Could I suggest you write to him, and maybe other people write to him and say, we're protecting all pollinators.
Yes. Well, actually, I thought if he's as thick as that, really, or I mean, I think he quite likes to be a bit controversial, doesn't he, with his radio program about punk and what have yous. That's probably partly why he did it. He just likes to, rub people up the wrong way. Also, yes, in that respect, wildlife associations. I joined Suffolk Wildlife about a year ago, and I don't think I've seen a single mention of Asian hornets in the various emails and magazines.
Ask them why. I think we as beekeepers have a responsibility when we are part of these other organisations to say, do you know about this? Why aren't you telling people? This will affect everything.
Yeah. And lastly, tree surgeons, parish councils and tree surgeons. They ought to be our friends. Parish councils certainly, I think, would be very interested in this, because we're all trying to be frightfully wildlife friendly and stuff, which is, a really good thing. And most of them own little pockets of green spaces with the occasional tree on here and there. These guys that climb up trees in order to chop them down. There must be some kind of federation of forestry killers or something.
I will ask the next tree surgeon I see dropping bark on the allotment. I do normally grill them and say, do you know about Asian hornets? I'm quite cheeky and just ask everyone. But yeah, some really good points there, Carol. We should all be writing to people who we think need to know better. So thank you. Jill, if you want to unmute. No, you've not unmuted. You've dropped your hand, but not your mute.
Thank you. Tree surgeons, Arbor Talk is the way to get to them all. It's a forum, they all use it, so that's the way to get hold of them. but the reason I put my hand up was photographs. I've been getting phone calls for the last couple of years about Asian hornets, and I used to sort of jump in the car and run out. And after a while, this stopped, and I just started saying, look, I do need a photograph. It doesn't matter how bad it is, because it doesn't actually need to be brilliant to figure out if it is an Asian hornet or not. People will tell lies, and sometimes they don't. I had one lady, she said I was trimming the hedge, and this Asian hornet flew out and bit me in the face. Well, can you take a photograph? I can't because I'm blind. Well, have you got a friend who can take a photograph? Well, no, but my friend's deathly allergic. Yeah. Do you know anybody else? Anyway, turns out she was blind and her friend was hyperallergic. But they did have another friend who could send a photograph, and it was a median wasp. But be persistent, because then, as public awareness increases, the number of calls we get will also increase. And we need to put on a bit of a hard hat and say, look, they're not aggressive. They're pretty docile. Not suggesting you go and tickle their ears, but you can go up to them and take photographs. Because you can't just jump in the car and go and set up monitoring stations right, left, and centre. We can't. So we've got to ask for photographs. So yeah, it was the photographs really. And can someone from the BBKA not get in touch with Chris Packham? He is on the autistic spectrum. He's quite passionate about stuff, but I'm sure he could be persuaded to revisit it and perhaps be educated. That's all.
I did write to Chris Packham, Diane, 18 months ago. Needless to say, I didn't get a response.
Thanks, Luke. Thanks, Jill, as well. So that's a really good point, isn't it? And I do that when I was on the swarm list. I used to insist on a photo, and you get all sorts of reasons why they can't take a photo, but there's always someone with a camera. You're never more than 10 meters away from someone with a video capable camera. Thanks. Roger, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, just a very quick one, please. I was only recently appointed as, if that's the right term, as the AHAT for Kennet. Is there a sort of task list or a set of terms of reference or something like a generic one anywhere at all, please? If not, or do I have to write my own?
I can see Andy nodding. He might be more familiar with the materials than me. There are those areas in the member hub, if you go and explore those. I think the bit we need to work out is when you are appointed or anointed, however you want to describe it, as an Asian Hornet coordinator, how do we get to know to make sure you see those areas and are told about the onboarding guide and the support available? And once you've got a box ticked in ER2, you should receive the mailings from the office directed at you. But we need to work out, I think, and just circle the square to make sure when you become a new one that we know about it, so we can say, welcome, this is what we can do for you, and there's the information. And I'm sort of looking to Teresa, who's writing something down possibly about that. So
Yeah,
Roger.
Diane.
Yeah.
Go on, Teresa.
Sorry, just on taking it one on from Diane's comment. I've just private messaged you the website we have for the volunteers in Cumbria. It's got a wealth of information. Hopefully that's
Fantastic.
useful to you.
Thank you very much indeed. I appreciate that, Andy.
No problem
Thanks.
at all.
Thank
Can you share that with us as well, please, Andy?
Oh, all right.
Thank you. Thank you. Teresa, go on.
Yeah, Diane, thank you. I was just going to say, so yeah, it's important. So anybody that's new on board, that we know, because we do have obviously the distribution list within ER2, and I really like the idea of a welcome, just to point to people where things are as well. So,
Yeah.
but unless we know who the people are that are new joining, I can't do that. So.
Yeah, thanks. We might have to look at
Yeah,
ER2 and see how we can extract a newly added officers list or something to be able to check that.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks. Peter, do you want to unmute?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, going back to the pollinators and that, it's not just pollinators; it's all insects, and they're having a detrimental effect in Europe to the bat and bird populations because they're taking all the insects and they're leaving very little for the others. So, and going back to the scouts as well, they're going to probably have to do an Asian hornet risk assessment if they're going out into the woods and things like that, because you know you walk 10 yards away from an Asian hornet in a bush and they're going to come out for you. So it's a lot more serious than that. And as well in Europe, they're finding that they're having to close down some cafes and various other things like that, farmers markets. It's having a real effect, and people just don't seem to realise how much of an effect it's going to be. Oh, it's just an insect. And don't get me started on Chris Packham. I've got absolutely no time for him whatsoever in any way,
We'll
shape, or
stop
form.
that one there. I was very diplomatic, but thanks,
Anyway,
Peter.
thank you.
If we just take the last two questions, because I've spotted the time, we're very nearly at 8:30, and I'm sure some of you would like to go and make a cup of coffee because my cup's empty. So Anthony, please, if you unmute.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. ER2, that's something new to me. I've just been appointed as a coordinator today, in fact. And my first sort of view of the ER2 is we're down in Sherborne in Dorset, and there seems to be a very sparse amount of information for a lot of the south. Obviously, Kent, Dover area, there's quite a lot of boxes ticked in that area and around Southampton. But when you come across to us, then there's huge swathes of the countryside that just have nothing, no information on ER2. I don't know if it's the time of year because monitors have been perhaps taken down, whether they'll go back. So yeah, if I could get a copy of this onboarding guide or find out where it is, that would be useful. But I think maybe all coordinators need to maybe concentrate a little bit and fill in these boxes, because I'm sure there are many thousands of square kilometers which have no monitoring taking place.
Right. Thank you, Anthony. The onboarding is in the member hub in one of the
Yep.
Asian Hornet sections. It's worth ploughing through all the stuff. There's an awful lot of resources there, but you'll quickly see which are the bits relating to the forum with the onboarding guide.
Yeah, great.
Thank you. The last question tonight is from Jill in South Staffs again.
Yeah, it was just simply again, I'm down as the coordinator, which scared me to death when I looked at it in all the area that I'm meant to be covering because it's got my telephone number on it. But you've just said maybe it should say on that coordinator bit a bit more information about just send a photo or a WhatsApp. How do you edit that little box? I've just clicked on it and it doesn't do anything. So other than showing my telephone number, so I can't change that information anywhere, can I?
No, it's in ER2, and you will need someone with ER2 editing access privileges to edit it, and then they can add something to it. And I'll ask Teresa to get the info about adding WhatsApp to the message to be sent out as a reminder to everyone so that people
Yeah.
can do that ahead of the season.
Yeah, because realistically, just clicking on my number, if somebody did phone me, I'd be going, now what? Because I don't have a team. I'm classed as the coordinator for South Staffs.
Yeah, and we might need to do some analysis of how many areas don't have a coordinator at the moment, how many do but aren't getting mailings, and we need to root out all these problems to make sure our communication and coordination is as good as possible, because without us all being able to do that, we're not going to get very far, are we? So we need to have a real effort this year.
No, I certainly follow the WhatsApp that comes in. I think I'm on 2 of them, so the information comes in. But they are information only. You can't say anything back to them, which is a little bit frustrating at times.
No, there are subgroups, and on those subgroups, people chat. So you could have one for your area and get other people to join it, and then you could coordinate your local activities, or have a completely separate group for your association. And it is down to associations how they organise that sort of bread
Okay.
and butter of things. But that WhatsApp is broadcast. So the idea is you don't get bombarded with it. If you're in lots of WhatsApp groups, you have to turn notifications off, otherwise your phone battery just go.
Yeah, understood.
So,
Could we also very quickly have something tell us what ER2 is and how we use it, please?
oh, shall we get something sent out? You have to be an
Please.
ER2 manager to actually be able to edit it. And some people have access, so they don't edit members' details but can send emails. And
But I don't know
if
what it
you
is.
if you've just been added as a coordinator, that is all you are. You are on that map. And you should be able, I think, to be able to set up tracking links through that side. But it's about 2.5 years since I learnt about that, and I've forgotten because I've slept a couple of times since then. So it's hugely complicated until you get your head around it, and then you can get better at doing things on it. But most people here probably don't have editing privileges, and you have to speak to the person who is your ER2 manager to get them to edit things for you. So, right. I am going to end it tonight now because otherwise we'll be, oh, was that Martin waving? Go on, what do you want to say, Martin? Or are you waving good night? Right, okay. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for your questions. I hope we've answered them all well. And thank you so much to Becca for her presentation, which will be uploaded to the Member Hub tomorrow. So if you want to watch it again, you'll be able to do that. So thank you all and good night. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.